So our first hand is on table 2.
What you can see here is that I actually checked my extended HUD on the big blind while I'm on the small blind. That's not like I'm obviously opening or like limp re-raising this hand every time. I'm not like limp calling because that's weak, and I'm not limp folding because that's horrible. But I want to prepare before actually the flop comes to see, like, even though it's on only 24 hands, what I should expect from the villain, because I'm going to be out of position. The flop's going to come, and I'm going to have like 3 other decisions on like every other table. So I just want to like know what I should be like planning ahead of time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You should always have a plan, usually for every hand that you play, even more so when you're out of position.
3 seconds, but like you saw what I did is like I clicked the extended HUD, and I went to see his flop play and like how aggressive he was, and he seemed not to be all that aggressive on the flop. So I expect him like right away to be like play a bunch of hands pre-flop because he plays 60-42, and then be kind of ABC post-flop.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, table 2, you've raised queen queen jack 8. Obviously fine.
Standard.
We bet the flop, which is standard by all means. We could like start to think of like a different strategy if we had more reads on this guy's tendencies, but I tend to pretty much bet here for value always.
I expected him to be ABC post-flop, so I don't think a check line there is good at all. Ever.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We would need a more concrete read on a tendency that would sway me to not do anything here but bet.
You definitely need something like specific. I'd definitely barreling the king. I mean, I'm still ahead of his calling range. It puts pressure on a bunch of hands that have equity. So like I'm gonna fold him off like 9x hands and like, you know, 6, 7, 8 hands and like deuce 3, 4, I don't know, something hands. He's gonna fold like hands that are ahead of me, like deuce 6 and maybe even like 9 deuce. Probably not, but like.
Yeah, they're probably not a huge part of his range either, but
well, I don't know. I'd defend a bunch of 9 deuce hands.
Like, well, yeah, I know. I'm not saying like it isn't part of his range, but it's not like a good part of it.
But yeah, it's a definite barrel for thin value, and like to put pressure on like his range.
Exactly, and then that's like a really good point. I was actually doing a session with a student the other day, and he's from a limit hold'em background. He's like, you know, is this a value bet or a bluff? And Omaha is kind of interesting in that like there's a lot of spots like this where really it's like a combination of the two. And we're just putting pressure on his range, and if he makes a mistake, that's awesome, basically.
In Omaha, for like, if anyone is like newer to Omaha and somehow got into the second part of a 2-part series, watch the part 1, everyone, seriously. But like, there's really no such thing as like being ahead or like behind, like in a absolute manner, unless you have like top set or like, you know.
Yeah, the equities just run so close together most of the time.
You're never ahead or behind in an absolute manner, like pre-flop on the flop or on the turn. So like the only concept of like value betting and like bluffing, like in a quote-unquote pure manner, is on the river. And until then, like you're just happy if you can fold them up 30% equity. Yeah, it's not a value bet, but like
you're fist pumping.
Yeah, he's making an equity mistake by folding against your hand, so it's a good bet. Like you just don't think about it like that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I totally agree with you is what my premise for that saying was. I think this is a really clear bet, and just put a lot of pressure on his range and put him in a really tough spot. And we pretty much always have the best hands too still.
7-8 there. It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if he has dry 7-8 without spades.
Oh yeah. Well, that's not hard, that's a fold.
Oh, no, I'm just saying. But I'm just saying though, because the spade hits the turn, it puts a lot more pressure on his range too.
I don't mind my huge sizing either. I mean,
yeah, especially out of position, just like we talked about earlier in the first video, we were in a marginal spot. Well, not a marginal spot, but a very standard c-betting spot. And we both said that if you c-bet on the smaller side, you're more likely to be screwed with, for lack of a better way to put it. A player's more likely to be more aggressive than if you bet small. Whereas if you bet large, he's going to play a lot more straightforward. And we kind of want him to play straightforward to this bet, is basically the point here. So I really like your bet sizing. You could even go as large as 27 here, I think.
As an overall like game plan, it reduces the SPR for later streets. Like it's not gonna reduce the SPR for like, you know, this particular river
spot, but yeah. So I totally agree with you.